Hello there. Welcome back to the Best Garb Bucket. I am the host, John. This is part 2 of my conversation with Ken from the Forces Behind Star Wars podcast. So, in this episode, we mainly talk about the 501st and the Mandalorian Mercs and all the different costuming groups. So, hopefully, you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Actually, speaking of choices and stuff, are you okay talking about the choice that you made that recently got you approved into one of these Star Wars costume clubs?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to say publicly, congratulations for getting your Kylo Ren costume approved. You got to be super happy about that.
Thank you. I am actually. I've been talking with a couple of people that I know outside of the Star Wars community. I know, shocker. I know people who don't like Star Wars as much as me, but I explained to them like, yeah, this has been a lifelong dream of mine. Where it's I've always wanted to be a part of the 501st ever since I found out that it was a thing. Where it's like, oh, there's a group of people that go out and dress up as like real Star Wars characters and do like charity events and a lot of charitable work. Where do I sign up? So
That's a different question. Where do you sign up is a totally different question.
yeah, right. But yeah, it's a very I don't want to say fulfilling because it's not like I did a whole lot, but it's one of those things where that's definitely a that's a lifetime achievement that I'm happy to check off.
Yeah, and while you may feel like you didn't do a lot, you still chose because somebody else, let's say you decide to gift that costume to me. You know my birthday's in May. You decide I'm going to give all of this stuff to Ken. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to take the steps necessary to then go and get approved by the 501st. So I can have that same stuff and make a different choice. You chose to get this stuff and go through the hoops, jump through the hoops to get approved in the 501st. So now you're part of that worldwide organization whose focus is on dressing up like people in this galaxy far, far away to bring joy to other folks who enjoy that galaxy far, far away, and or to raise money for people, to raise money for whether it's Make-A-Wish Foundation or a children's hospital or what have you.
Or a
Not
horse
everybody
rescue
can...
located
Yeah,
in Suffield, Ohio.
there you go.
Yeah, that's the other thing where I'm just slightly off topic, but still kind of on topic. Now that I'm a part of the 501st, I'm trying with every breath in my body to convince my mother to because we've got a charity and a nonprofit organization called Focus Rescue and Rehabilitation, where we rescue horses and other farm animals. So I'm trying to convince them like, hey, I'm in this thing now. Let's have a fundraiser that's Star Wars themed because that's basically what my dad and I are known for. It's like my mom's the horse person, dad and I are the Star Wars people. So I'm like, why don't we bring the two together? Get all the kids out, get all the adults out. We'll have a fundraiser that's Star Wars themed, and I'm starting to meet more people in the 501st and in Rebel Legion and in the Mando Mercs, which I am baffled. It took all of, I don't know, 2 hours to where my inbox was flooded with congratulations and welcomes and friend requests and Facebook group invites from all these different people who I have no idea who they are, but are super kind and super welcoming. So, but I'm trying to merge those two worlds where it's like, hey, let's do something that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah, you
So,
bet. And to be willing to be creative with it. So it could be a live event. It could be costume characters with the animals and visitors and so on. And or who's to say that you don't put together an 18-month calendar where you've got photographs of different Star Wars characters with different animals that have been rescued. So you could be, Mr. June with Frito the filly from from Pennsylvania.
I thought you were gonna say Philadelphia. That would have been perfect.
I was thinking about it. I didn't know if I should do Philly from Philly, but in hindsight, I probably should have. But yes, because I know that I've seen some I don't know if it was Australia where they did, it was a pet rescue or pet adoption rather. So it was, Star Wars characters holding bunnies and weasels and kittens and puppies, and like, come on, puppies and Star Wars costumes. Shoot, that's
Yeah.
3/4 of the world enjoy those things right there.
Yeah, right.
And if you don't like puppies and Star Wars characters, we may not be friends.
Yeah, those are two must-haves right there. But yeah, it's very nice to finally be officially a part of a group that I know I can gel with and can interact with. Because I've said it 1,000 times to you guys. Where I'm from, I don't know a lot of Star Wars people, but now that I'm a part of the 501st, and I have these avenues like our because Ohio is broken up. Ohio is one garrison, but it's broken up into 3 squads. So you've got, or no, it's 3 or 4. I think it's 4. But my region of Ohio is the Burning River squad, and immediately as soon as our CO had posted like, hey, welcome in DS 62399, the SL, the squad lead, reached out to me and he was like, hey, welcome. I'm gonna add you to a couple groups. That way you're a part of this very specific sect of people, that are all relatively within an hour close by. If you need anything or if you got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And come to find out that he's 15 minutes down the road from me.
Oh,
and I would never have known that unless, if it wasn't for, being in this group with so many special people.
You may have watched a movie with him already and not even known it.
Right. Yeah.
And why is it called Burning River? Just is it because the river actually got set on fire a few years ago?
No, it's the river that comes out of Vader's castle.
Oh, so the Mustafar lava flow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like our sigil, if you will, is actually it's Vader's castle, and then the river flows down into the Burning River Squad logo.
Okay.
Quite an ingenious design, if you ask me.
Nice.
But yeah, it's nice to finally say that I'm an official 501st member. So now we just need to find an event that works for everyone that we've known. Me, you, Mike, Marty, Dan, everyone that we can all troop an event together.
One of the things I've joked around with some people, and most of the times that I bring it up, they just like pat me on the head and say, yeah, Ken, that's funny. Like, I would love to get together with a handful of folks and put our costumes on, just to put our costumes on, like not go to a convention, like go bowling or to go to a local ice cream stand or whatever, and just see how people respond, just to see how people react.
Could you? So I can guarantee you it's going to be a mix of what the hell is going on, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which is it, 70-30, 30-70, like which is it? I don't know if it'll be 50-50.
No, it can't be 50-50.
Because so I put a lot of time in, as basic as my costume is, and I'll say right now that my costume is not at the level that I want it to be. However, I've learned a lot along the way, and so my next costume will be even better. With that said, I still put it on from time to time just because, and thankfully, Heather is kind enough to go along with it. So I've worn it to a local GameStop. I got some pictures taken of me in my costume near a bus stop, just like looking at the time and being silly. In front of a couple billboards that are around here because the billboards had some sort of motivational quote on them or whatever. I got pictures of me walking my dog in the neighborhood, um, just because I like putting it on. I enjoy that sense of I made this, I created this, and I made it to share, and it's not doing any good sitting in a tote.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's the one thing that bothers me about my costume is I didn't make it, but that's not to say that I can't for the next one. This was a stepping stone to get me into that larger world. This is your first step into a larger world. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, but and I love your costume. I love Kennex. I think it's a fantastic design. I love your weapon. Just to be honest with you, that is my favorite part of your costume. But you're right. You made that. You put your time, you put your money and effort into making that, and that's your costume. Nobody can ever take that away from you.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say those things because not only did I make it, but when I was thinking about making it, I had the whole story in my head of why I wanted it to look the way that I wanted it to look and why I chose the weapon I chose. So, you mentioned my weapon. So, my main weapon is a 6.5 or 7 foot tall pole sword. Um, and part of the reason why I chose a pole sword is because I know at the time many of the local events in New Jersey were asking for folks not to bring blasters. They didn't want people showing up with guns, even if they were fake Star Wars guns. So I'm like, okay, how do I get? I want my character to be badass, and I can't be badass barehanded necessarily. So I'll make a big pole sword, and I chose the bear armor, that the Beskar armor, not because I even knew necessarily what Beskar was, but I saw Jango Fett's costume, and it was mostly shiny silver. And then when I saw Captain Phasma and the reflective quality of that costume, like that's what I want. I want to have that impressive um, vision of just shiny because it also reflects whatever's around it. So even though it itself doesn't have a color, it reflects what's around it.
Hmm.
So the costume does have that reflective quality, and that was before, Din Djarin was a character. That was before the Mandalorian ever came out, and it took me that long to actually get my skills together long enough or combined enough to go through that whole approval process. And it was
Right.
by no means a fun picnic.
And if you think about it this way, though, you know, I beg to differ, but you say your skills weren't up to snuff, you know, but now you're a part of the Mercs, so maybe you don't know how to sew, but there's plenty of people. What's your clan name?
The Rakardan clan.
So I'm sure there's 15 people in the Rakardan clan that are very proficient in sewing, but aren't too good with Sintra, the expanded PVC, which I'm sure you now have plenty of experience with. So I mean, it's a nice trade. That's kind of why I went with the Kylo costume that I did, where it's like, okay, let's get in the door, so that way, because like I want to do a TK. I know my dad wants to do a TK. Now it's okay. I need to find the people who know what they're doing and that can help me along the way to get this costume out there, so I can also have a secondary or a third or a fourth or even a fifth costume.
Yeah, and now that you're approved, when you do interact with those other folks from the group, you you have a little bit more clout behind you. So the way I did it, the way I got involved is I started off just being a supporter of the Mandalorian Mercs. So I would go to conventions with the New Jersey Mandos or the Pennsylvania Mandos, and I would work at the table. I would act as a squire to the people in costume, or I would be the guy taking pictures of family members with the Mandalorians, and so I got to meet some people that way. But it wasn't until I got approved and was side by side with them in kit, and it's going to sound silly, but I'll say it out loud anyway, that I was taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No,
now that I've crossed that threshold, you know, now I've got a small leadership position in the New Jersey group, and so it is fun, and I think you get out of it what you put into it. So, and you seem like the person who's going to put into it a whole bunch, and so I know you're going to get a whole bunch back.
yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I was, again, the Burning Squad, the Burning Squad leader. I was just chatting with him because he was asking me, he's like, hey, you know, when can you make it out to your first troop? Like, we've got one this Saturday. Like, if you're available. You know, I was running down, like, I think back now, I was like, wow, I could have phrased that a whole lot better. But like, I was just like, you know, I unfortunately, like, with my career, like, Saturdays are all 100% booked. It's few and far between I can get a Saturday off. And you know, my days off are Fridays and Sundays, but I work a second job, and Sundays through between August and February are booked for me because I've got season tickets for the Browns. And you know, I was just sitting there thinking about it, like, oh shit, I hope I didn't just tell this guy, like, oh, I'm never gonna make it to events. To which, you know, and he's like, wow, you've got quite the schedule. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, I always make time for Star Wars. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like, I'm signed up for one event. Um, so in Canton, the where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is, um, every month they've got an event downtown where it's called First Friday. So every first Friday of the month, there's a big, I don't want to call it a celebration, but it's basically a massive block party where, you know, everyone's out all night, you know, just partying, having a good time. But there's an art show that someone that hadn't, you know, they had been pushed off and pushed to the side because of COVID and the pandemic, where it was she's like, I want to do a cosplay, you know, portion of this art show. So we got invited to that, and it just, thank God it happened on a Friday. So now I just need to tell my boss at GameStop, like, hey, I gave you a calendar, cross me off for the second. Like, I've got an event. So I'm happy that I'm signed up for that. I'm probably gonna try and make, there is a convention at a sports complex next Sunday
Okay.
to try and sign up for. I'm just I'm holding on just for a second to see, just to make sure that I don't, because my brain is, unless I'm constantly reminded, I totally forget about events. So
Well, this is where you get to take advantage of the technology that you have. So put it in your Google Calendar and send your stuff around. And this is going to sound potentially silly, but I think it's worthy of saying out loud. And that is, whatever your first event is that you go to, make sure you put in the effort to have folks take pictures of you with your phone.
Mhm.
Because one of the hugest challenges of being a person in costume, if you don't go with someone who is your handler, who is your squire, you're gonna miss some of those things, especially that first troop. You wanna be able to catalog it. You want to be able to share it. You want to be able to. I know you can look back through the pictures in your head. It's different to be able to look at that image right in front of you, um, with other characters, or with that first kid who comes running up to you and says, "I want a picture with Kylo Ren." You know.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty with that I'm finding, is that I don't know enough people that I can convince, like, hey, can I steal you for a morning or an afternoon to come
Yeah.
take pictures of me with a bunch of other nerds?
Well, see, each of these events. So when the Mercs are at events, they have folks who are in costume, and then they have folks who are handling. They have folks who are squiring. So they know that there are, like, as simple as my costume is, there's a couple pieces that I need some help adjusting because I can't see it the way you would see it. So I need to make sure that my plates are specifically set up because they're on Velcro. And so when I put them in my kit box and take them out of my kit box, sometimes they get shifted. So I
Mhm.
need that person to be able to stand in front of me and help me adjust my plate. So we have folks who that's what they do during the event. So so during this 2 hours, you might be the person who's not in a costume who's helping everybody else, and then the second 2 hours you're in costume and person B is helping out. So just make sure that you do ask one of those squires to get some pictures of you,
Mhm.
um, because especially that first event, you don't want to miss it. My first event, I was actually, it was a really small event at this comic book shop in New Jersey that was like a kind of a celebrity meet and greet. So we got to be there with Dominic Pace.
Okay.
So that was my very first troop, and it was only two Mandos and a handful of 501st guys. It was right before it might have even been after COVID happened. Um, but yeah, it was tiny, 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 and it's still one of those things, as silly as it may sound, that you want to memorialize with a handful of photographs. You want it with a and to get that person to help you out.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
most of the folks who are involved in the 501st or the Mercs or the Rebel Legion or the Saber Guild or the Dark Spire or the Dark Empire, they understand. They'll be willing to help out.
Right. Yeah, my biggest fear, and this is gonna sound dumb, but I've got crippling social anxiety. Like I'm not sure if you remember, but like the when we went out to the Cliffs of Kenoi to do the Han Solo Chronicles, I was
Yeah.
very quiet except for with Mike until I started to warm up to you and Marcus and Quinn and Marty and everyone there. So, but
Well, I
it
hear
takes
what
a
you're
minute.
saying, and one thing that may offer you up some strength is the minute you put on that costume, you're not John. No one knows you as John. No one, no heck, no one even knows if you're John or Jane. In this moment, for that person, whether it's the 65-year-old grandpa or the 6-year-old, kindergartner, you're Kylo Ren, and they want to get a picture with you. They want to say hi to you.
Right.
So you get to perform as that other person for a moment.
Yeah. That's see, yeah, that's the other thing is I know all of two poses that are good for Kylo Ren that I need to figure out more, and I need to that's the one thing well, that's the other thing that I'm concerned with myself of where it's okay, how am I going to present myself as this character?
What are the two poses?
It's the blocking the blaster bolt and the
The side
the
stance?
yeah. So the one that I was thinking just for like personal pictures is there was a promo piece from The Force Awakens that where he's down and he's holding his lightsaber out and he's got one hand down in front of him and he's
Mm-hmm.
crouched down.
Yep.
Not exactly great to do for at like conventions, but
Well, it might if you're doing it with if you got little kids next to you. It puts you at their height.
true. That's true.
And
Yeah.
so a couple things that I've done with my costume. So I'm a merc and I carry around a pole sword. At a couple events, I actually brought with me those little collapsible lightsabers.
Hmm.
I would have one of those in my back pocket collapsed, and I would flick it out and give one to the kid to do a battle pose with. Or sometimes, especially if it's a family and there's kids of different ages, I'll say, hey, excuse, I'll pick one of the one random member of the family. Say, excuse me, can you do me a favor? And they'll be like, can you hold this for me? And I'd give them my pole sword. Can you hold this for me? I'm a little bit tired, and I'd let them hold the pole sword while this group is around me.
Hmm.
So to think through some of those things, and you'll grow into that costume. You'll learn how it feels to have it on, because it's one thing to wear it in pictures. It's another thing to wear it for 2 or 3 hours at a time.
Right.
You'll understand how it fits you and how it maneuvers with you, and you'll find your place. You'll find your power poses, your go-tos, and so on.
Yeah,
You know.
and I know it's something that I'm gonna learn and kind of like you said grow into over time. It's getting over that initial hump of anxiety that I need to just do it and get over it.
Yeah, and every costumed character, every person who's built a costume, wears a costume, especially at these events, whether you're the random fan who's just wearing the mask over your face, or you're the person who's invested the time in hunting down the appropriate screw for your kit, experiences that. I'm wearing this thing. How do I present this thing?
Hmm.
And it'll just take time.
Yeah, and hell, I remember with Mando, like it took me a while to grow into the stance and the presence of that character. Where now I've got an arsenal of different poses and how I interact with. Well, interacting with people is pretty easy as Mando. You don't say a whole lot. You just kind of nod. But the yeah, it's see my the a problem that I'm gonna have to get around with Kylo and doing actual 501st is I've just got an innate um desire to I want to take the helmet off and like actually like interact with kids, and I know that's a big no to to these groups. Is I just like I like interacting. I like putting a face to things, and that's kind of the reason why I cut my hair. Where it's I want to present the whole character, not just the exterior. So,
Well, and so what it may require is the conversation beforehand.
mhm.
So talk with the main organizer of that particular event, and I don't mean the whole event. I mean just the 501st folks that are going to be there,
Mhm.
and ask them what their rules are, their situations, because there are some Mandalorians who won't take their helmet off in front of a fan, and then there are other folks who will very easily, very quickly take it on and put it off, or put it on and take it off. In fact, there was a one time where a family came up to get a picture, and this little kid freaked out. And so I lifted my helmet. I'm a real boy. I'm a real. So I had to show them that I was a person underneath, and they calmed down a little bit. And I put my helmet back on. Um, and most of the events that you go to are non-Lucasfilm events. So if you want to take your helmet off, take your helmet off.
Right.
If you want to interact with Betty Sue or Billy Bob or what, do it. You know, what's the worst that they're gonna say? Someone like, hey, you still have another hour of your shift. Can you keep your helmet? Okay,
Right.
but
Yeah. I'm excited. I've heard a lot of negative things where it's in the back of my mind, but
yeah.
knowing you and knowing Mike, Marty, and everyone else that I've spoken to, I'm just excited. I'm pumped to actually go troop events and just be a character for hours on end.
And there will be those moments that knock your socks off. There will. The last event that we had, I mean, I remember, I think I told you and Mike about it, how this little guy called from 15 feet away, hey Mando, and then got some pictures, and then came back later with that flat fronted, Din Djarin mask that he purchased somewhere out on the floor, had his mom buy, and wanted to come back and get a picture. Like those kind of things. Like that's why you do it,
Yeah.
to give that joy, to make that connection, to see that excitement. And there'll be also moments that you won't expect. So there's been a number of times where I've been in costume, and you see the parents wanting to get the kid in the picture, and you can tell they also want to get in the picture.
Hmm.
And the minute you say, hey, wait a minute, Bill, you got a second? Bill, can you take a picture of the whole family for us? And really, I can get in the picture too. So the adults get as equally excited in some cases as the kids do.
Yeah.
you know and those are the ones you can't necessarily plan, And when they happen, you're like, yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I still remember there was one picture of the from Steel City Con that Mike got. There was a real like skittish kid that he was wearing a little Grogu hat, and he hands behind his back, just like didn't want to say anything. And I was talking with the parents for with conventions, and especially God how we were moving at Steel City Con. We were just churning and burning pictures. Like it was nice to have just a little like you know step back, take a breath in reality moment where I just knelt down and talked to the kid, gave him a fist bump, and got a quick picture. So
Well, one of the other differences with going as a with a costume group, one of the benefits of it, if you want to, you can be stationed. So you can be there at the booth for as long as you want in that costume. So the folks who want pictures come to you. And if you want to, you can then go stroll the floor in your costume. And sometimes strolling the floor can be just as exciting, just as fun, because you may be able to get, like, for instance, um, even though my kit is a custom kit, there are other Mandalorian toys out there. So whether it's a Funko Pop or um, a 6-inch Black Series Din, sometimes I'll go to these little vendor booths, and if I see something Mandalorian while I'm in my kit, I'll have Heather take a picture of me with it. And in the midst of doing that, other people will come around, or you may see someone else in the costume that you want to get a picture with
mhm.
in your costume. So it could be Kylo Ren and She-Ra, or Kylo Ren and fill in the blank of costumed fan, and before you know it, you have 12 people circling around you because they happen to be there at that moment that you were shoulder to shoulder with the Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
that reminds me. The first Steel City Con I went to, there was an artist who had a beautiful Din Djarin piece that I ended up getting a print of, and I just asked him like, "Hey, man, I love this. Can I just get a quick picture with you in in your painting?" So that's actually as dumb as it might sound, that's one of my favorite pictures that I have of me in my Din kit, where it's just me and a guy's not in costume. We're both just holding up this really nice piece of artwork that he made, and it's probably top 10 pictures for me from conventions. Marty's pictures are on a totally different plane. Those those are going to be hard to top. But like it just strictly from like speaking from conventions and like getting pictures with other people, that's definitely up there as one of my favorite pictures. My favorite all-time one though is the one with me and the kid with the Grogu hat, and I'm kneeling down just talking to him.
yeah,
That's
and
just
that's for now.
right. That's
You
just a
know,
wholesome moment that if I could recreate that 100,000 times over, I would.
and one of the great things about it is you don't necessarily have to recreate it because you were there. And just like when we were talking earlier about hearing different pieces of John Williams' score, and it gets us back there, just simply mentioning it can get you back there.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm gonna guess that you can remember which knee you knelt down with. You can remember which hand you fist bumped. You can remember that sensation of this little person wanted to chat with you, not because you were John. And as much as I love you as John, they don't know John. They saw the Mandalorian. They saw, and for them rather, you're Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I still remember seeing the excitement behind his eyes just through the T visor, and just seeing how excited he was to just see the real Mandalorian probably for the first time.
You bet.
So especially having Chewbacca, Boba Fett, and Triple Zero in the background of that was probably pretty cool too. But I got a feeling that he was excited to see Mando.
Yeah, I mean, Mando's the one that knelt down and talked to him. It wasn't necessarily C-3PO.
Right.
Not saying that they
Eh,
wouldn't. I'm just saying that in that moment didn't,
Well,
because it was
C-3PO couldn't.
kid didn't know that. And that is one thing that I think is special about some Star Wars costumers. some Star Wars yes, we enjoy the creativity part of it. We enjoy the challenge of making this thing, and and there's that joy of sharing it. And yes, do I get personal satisfaction and enjoy it? Absolutely. And I also know that for that moment, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes, because I've had kids talk my ear off for 5 minutes about how they saw this show and they want to know where my spaceship is and they want to know if I left Grogu, wherever. Doesn't matter how long the moment is for them. There's the joy of seeing a Star Wars, seeing that character, and having that one-on-one with them.
Yeah,
It's cool.
yeah, and like you said, look, I'm an attention whore to begin with. But like you said, being able to share that with Mike says it all the time. The much less fortunate, the people who don't see Star Wars every day like we do. For some people where it's like this is the only time they're ever gonna see, a stormtrooper or Kylo Ren or Kennex in person.
Yep.
So like you said, being able to share that that's truly special, and not a lot of people can have that same feeling and same satisfaction.
Yeah, and what's interesting about some of us who dress up in costume, not all of the fans realize that we're willing to pose with them for nothing. And so there have been moments where I've been in my costume and I've seen, families come around and, they'll wave from a distance or whatever. And I'll say, "Hey, you want a picture?" They're like, "Oh no, I don't, I don't want to pay for it." I'm like, "No, no, no. There's no cost." "What do you mean no cost?" "Yeah, and because at one event that I was at with Mike, so where the 501st and the Mandalorian Mercs, we were on one side of the aisle. On the other side of the aisle was all of the named cosplayers. So the people who have Instagram accounts and all of this sort of stuff. They were charging for their pictures. They were charging, in some cases, they were charging for photographs and autographs and all that. And we're just here giving out these photographs. "Come on over here." And some people were like, "Oh no, let me give you some money." "No, that's not. I'm not asking for your money. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the offer. I just want I want you to be able to be in the photograph. I want you to be able to capture this moment with your three kids or whomever is with you."
Yeah, and I mean, to take it one step further, we're doing this for totally free to them, but in reality, like we're paying to give other people these experiences. Like we're doing this out of our own pocket. It's not like we're getting paid to make appearances or to show
Yeah.
up in costume. A lot of the times, in almost every single case, we pay a lot of money for these costumes
Yeah.
because we want to share that with other people. We want other people to see us and have that experience.
Yeah, and that's why I was, saying that I want to get a handful of people to go to the ice cream stand. just just because. And I'm not saying go there for 6 hours, you know, an hour. We'll go. Heck, we'll even buy a sundae that we can eat after. We'll do our pictures. We'll buy a sundae. We'll eat our sundae and we'll go away.
Hmm.
Because there's something I think is both funny and magical about seeing people in costume where they don't belong. Like, wait, you come around the corner of this ice cream stand, or you come around the corner of this, in the mall, and there's, wait a minute, that's Kylo Ren, and wait a minute, is that a robot, and who the hell is this guy with a sword? You know, so I think that's just it's fun. I think,
Yeah.
and it's fun and silly. So
Yeah, and at the
anytime
end
we
of the
can
day,
do that.
that's all it's about. That's why we do it. It's because it's fun. So, we can poke as much fun at ourselves as we want. We're spending thousands of dollars on costumes for fictional characters, but we enjoy it. It's what we love to do.
Yeah, and I don't think I will ever get to the place where I build something that's so fancy that I won't want somebody to touch it. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's a bad thing for folks to create something like that, However, if you're creating something like that and you're bringing it to a place where folks' natural reaction is to touch it, I think you may be slightly confused. You're like, there are places for that, whether it's an art display or what have you. But if you're going to one of these events and you're lying all of these stuff out at kids' height and it looks like a toy, kids are going to think it's a toy. So don't
Right.
get all tripped up if somebody picks up this blaster that you spent $500 scouring the internets for the right screws for.
Yeah.
And,
And
and
I
don't get mad at the kid who can't read your sign because they happen to be 6.
yeah. And like the way I look at it is if I had to put a dollar amount on my Mandalorian, I probably spent $2,000 putting that costume together totally. Whether that be, trial and error, this paint didn't work, or I had to reprint a couple pieces because I had like 90% failures on some of my 3D prints, or even like the flight suit cost me $200. The bandolier cost me $250. You know, at the end of the day, it's all replaceable. There's nothing on that suit where it's like, oh my god, if someone bumps into me and this breaks, I'm screwed. I there's no way I can replace this. If it's that irreplaceable, you shouldn't wear it out to begin with.
Yeah, like if it's
So,
if it's a screen used prop from A New Hope, that might not be the thing that you bring to a convention and put on the table.
right.
That
Yeah.
might be something you leave back, behind the thing from a distance and, in a box or, like a glass cube or whatever, plexiglass thing. But don't put it out there, at child height, you know, along with all these other things that they can touch and then be upset if somebody touches it. I've seen that happen. And I just scratch my head and go, I think you're really mixed up.
Yeah, you're misreading the situation here there, buddy.
Yeah, there's a time and a place for those things, and this may not be that time or that place.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, I want as much interaction as possible. And if that means, someone's accidentally bumping into me and I fall and crack my helmet, oh well. I'll fix it or replace it.
I broke one of my wrist rockets at an event. So my wrist rocket that's on my gauntlet, it's just 3D printed and painted. And
Mhm.
I was walking through a crowd and I had my hand out so that I could keep I kept close enough to the group, but not to the point where we were bumping into each other. And so I had my hand out and that person turned, and when they turned, their backpack got caught on my wrist rocket and it snapped the end right off.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I took the wrist rocket off, put it in my box, and now I got the gauntlet. Okay. And then when I got home, I glued it. Okay. I didn't get all
yeah,
mad at that person or, mad at the crowd because they made that guy. It happens.
yeah. That happened to me at Steel City Con twice, actually, where I was leaning up against a wall and someone had bumped into me and my hip cracked the tip off my blaster. It's a PLA printed prop. It took, I had to go back to my room, super glue the tip back on, and it was good to go for the next day. Or like I don't know, I actually don't know what happened. The My left gauntlet with the flamethrower, the underside got chipped. I think I walked into a wall or something, or someone had bumped into me. Then I had a good probably $half size chip taken out of the paint because it's all just Bondo and spray paint. So, oh well, it's on the underside. I can just keep my arm close to my side so nobody sees it.
Yeah.
So, and lo and behold, I ended up redoing the whole armor after that time. I wore it anyway. So,
Yeah. And I can't imagine that any person that was there came up to you and said, wait a minute, wait. So if I'm going to get a picture with you, I need you to, turn sideways and cover that.
yeah, no, and that Mike and I have had this conversation dozens of times where we are so meticulous about our own costumes because we know them and because we made them. But it's just like the picture he posted on Facebook. The average person can't tell the difference between your Ruby's kit and your Centurion kit.
Yes.
So all they see is a stormtrooper, or all they see is a Mandalorian.
Yep.
They don't care if you've got the wrong Chicago screw in 2 millimeters to the left of where it should be. They don't care.
They just want to see the Star Wars.
Right.
Even if they call you the wrong thing.
Yeah, even if Darth Revan gets called Kylo Ren. Or a TIE pilot.
Darth Vader. Or me Mando. I mean, I can't even count the number of times where I'll be, with a group of other Mandalorians, and they'll call me Mando. Like, what about these three? No, you're Mando. Because they make that connection with the shiny Beskar. You're Mando. Even though my helmet doesn't look like his, my armor doesn't look like his, I'm Mando to them.
You and I need to get side by side at some sort of convention, just so we can be like, all right, I'm the Mandalorian, this is Kennex.
Yes.
Because I think your armor it's more of like a shinier silver, where Din's is more of a gunmetal.
Yeah, and with his, it was deliberately weathered, so when you look at the ridges on it and so on, you can see a different color, and it's beautiful when you're up close to it that way.
Oh yeah.
And mine is literally just one color or non-color. It's just reflective aluminum looking.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I love Kennex. I think it's a fantastic design, and I am very jealous of what you've got.
It is fun. It really is.
Who'd have thunk? Yeah, let's take a minute to appreciate that we're even sitting here having this conversation about things that I'm sure neither of us expected to actually do in our lifetime.
Oh, a million times, yes. I mean, so I had joined the Mandalorian Mercs forum, I want to say 2011, and started working on a costume or whatever. And even as a kid, I thought about what it would be like to have a Star Wars costume. And then life happened, and I put it aside, and all of that kind of stuff. And then I chose to follow up and do more, and finally get it finished after lots of headaches and heartaches. And doing that led me to so many other things. Working on that led me to an opportunity to meet Zoe and Mike, which led me to an opportunity to go to Convoy, Pennsylvania, to meet you and Marcus and Quinn. And now here we are, and we've talked for 2.5 hours about this galaxy far, far away that we both enjoy so much. And you've driven how many hours to get to our filming location or our Tusken Raider build?
Too many.
Yeah.
Well, actually, not enough.
Yeah. And I can say I had appreciated a Tusken Raider from a distance, but had never thought that's the costume I want. Now I have a Tusken Raider helmet to add to my collection of other helmets that I have.
Right. Yeah, I mean I and I know obviously he's not here tonight with us to talk about it, but if it wasn't for Mike, there is no way I would do as many of the things that I'm currently doing. And honestly, I wouldn't be as happy as I am today. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I can tell you I wouldn't have this much Star Wars in my life if it wasn't for Mike. He's definitely the one that he was the main driving force behind, hey, get a costume, join the 501st, you'll love it. I know who you are, I know the things you enjoy to do. You should do this. And he then obviously linked me with Marty, which led to me getting the Kylo costume. And he led me to you, so now we can have our Wednesday night chats like this. So,
and with that in mind, it's also led to us both developing this skill set of I mean, yes, we could always talk. We could talk before, but I don't think our conversations would have been as organized. I don't think our conversations would have been. It wouldn't have been in this forum, that's for sure. I mean, we probably, if we had become friends we may have just called each other on the telephone. We wouldn't have necessarily sat down in front of a computer and not just had the conversation, but recorded this conversation to then share with the world.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. it's wonderful to think about that now I've got so many people now that it's 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 baffling to me that I can have these opportunities where we can just sit and chat for 2.5 hours, or go to these events, or be a part of the fan film, or
Yeah.
anything really. It's nice to think about that I've been awarded these opportunities, and these, like I said, these life moments that with without Mike, I don't think I would truly have. But like, I mean, I've been in the 501st Forum, or at least the Ohio Garrison Academy, and the Ohio 501st Forum since I think 2017. I think it's when I was properly turned on towards that from. And it's funny. I was chatting with a guy at, because I used to work at the box office at the movie theater I used to work at. That was how I
Okay.
got my start there. Guy came in. I don't even think there was a Star Wars movie coming out, because it was the summer of 2017, and just chatting with him there for a minute, because it was a weekday afternoon, so there was nobody there. Just chatting with him, he's like, "Yeah, because he had a Star Wars shirt on." Talking to him for a minute, he's like, "Yeah, I'm a part of the 501st," and I was like, "Oh, I've heard so much about that, but I don't know anything of how to go about it." And he explained, like, "Oh, we've got this Facebook group. Let me know, here, add me on Facebook real quick. I'll add you. Blah blah blah." So yeah, and now looking at 5+ years later, now I'm a part, because I found other people that were willing to put in the time and the effort to push me. It who I mean, I look, I get down on myself a lot. So I think of this as, you, Marty, and Mike specifically, you didn't have to waste your time talking to a kid from Ohio who's half your age, who you wouldn't know if it wasn't for Star Wars. You don't have to do that, but I'm forever indebted, because you took that time, and you took the effort to say, "Hey, get your shit together and do this."
Well, on
So
the flip side, I could very easily say the same thing. Like, why would you, this youngster from Ohio, want to talk to an old dude from New Jersey who just likes to dress up in Star Wars stuff? You know what I mean? So the appreciation and the honor, I think, goes in both directions. And what's super exciting to think about is the other possibilities that can come from these things. So yes, we've started the inflatable Falcon, and you now have the Beskar bucket, which we're talking about, or talking on rather. And as an official member of the 501st, who's to say that you can't invite some of those other 501st Ohio Garrison members, whether it's the Flaming River Squad or whomever, and say, hey, you might find two people who dress in. Let's have a TK episode,
yeah,
and you bring Mike and Colin in from Pennsylvania, or you bring Mike and Colin in from Pennsylvania, and you grab Chuck from Florida, and so you've got the five TKs talking about what it's like as a stormtrooper, because that experience in that costume is different than Kylo Ren, which is different than Kennix, and so on. Or what if you got together at one of these conventions and you put together a panel, because you now feel comfortable and confident enough to lead a conversation. It's one thing to be in a conversation. It's another thing to be organized enough to keep the conversation going for an extended period of time.
right.
Asking the right questions, um, or asking different questions, or extending yourself and sharing either your personal stories or your opinions openly and willingly, because everyone has opinions, but not everyone is willing to share them, and not everybody is comfortable or confident enough to enunciate them in a way that is understandable to folks.
Right.
So sky's the limit at where this could go. And for all we know, Dave Filoni is listening to this saying, you know what, we got to get these guys something. Or the folks from Magic Jump, they're saying, yeah, we should fly the three of them out here to California so they can see our warehouse, and and be in the inflatable Falcon, wearing their Beskar buckets. Because
Right.
all of us, Mike has a Mandalorian helmet, you have a Mandalorian helmet, I have a Mandalorian helmet. We could be bouncing around in the inflatable Falcon wearing our Beskar buckets and sharing that in a TikTok video for the world to see.
Yeah, and again, I credit this all back to you and Mike for even being a part of it. So, because yes, the sky is the limit, but I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else.
Yeah, I feel very, very similar, my friend. I truly do, and I can't say thank you enough or loud enough, because this is super cool in small words or a few words. It is super cool to think that on a weekly basis, three random folks get together and share joy with each other and are willing to put it out for other folks to pick up on and listen to and potentially share that joy as well. So
Yeah, I say without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, Wednesdays are my favorite day of the week. So, because I always look for it, because now that even when the shows are going on, it's like, okay, we've got we can I can watch the show in the morning when I wake up. I'll set my alarm, and then okay, cool, I've got Wednesday night because I can talk about it. So, and even when the shows aren't going on, it's like, okay, cool. All right, got to make it through the week. Got to make it to Wednesday because I can talk with Mike and Ken about anything and everything, whether that be a recap of this week's latest episode, or the toys from the 70s and 80s.
yeah, and I it I can't plan this. However, I do look forward to the random thing that comes out from one of us. And we know without a shadow of a doubt there is going to be the random nugget that none of us expected. So, when Mike drops, oh yeah, my cousin Don Johnson.
Right.
Wait, so I understand that there are lots of people in the world named Don and Johnson, but are you talking about the Don Johnson? Because not everybody can say that they're Don Johnson's cousin, and of course Mike is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother gambit right there. But yeah,
Or or just, oh yeah, Zoe was talking to so and so who read or who wrote such and such book, and she's going to be on, that author's going to be on their podcast in 2 weeks or whatever. Man,
yeah.
that's cool. We're closer to Star Wars than I ever thought imaginable.
Yeah, or I got complimented by the costume designer from the Ahsoka show and got to see the Sabine armor before anyone else.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's never said from that perspective of, oh, I'm going to one up you. It's just shared, and we celebrate it probably more than they do, but it's fun. It really is.
Yeah, it's truly special. That's all. I mean, really, it's all I can say. Is it's truly special that we get to share these experiences with each other, and because honestly, when we started doing this, I thought it was going to be, okay, we'll chat on Wednesdays and that's that. But it is turned into daily. At least one of us says something in the little Facebook group chat that we've got, and we share a conversation about something other, like even if it's just me, like, cool, the Karita form is extremely broken.
Yep.
It, I don't know. It's one of those things where it
Or did you hear this news?
right. Hey, did you hear that we might be getting a Cal Kestis show? Oh no,
Yep.
I didn't hear about that. What are the details? And then just go on about that. But I can ramble on about how much I appreciate you guys for hours.
So
But
what if we did this? What if we figured out a way where you, Mike, Zoe, Marty, Dan, and myself came up with costumes that were cohesive? And I don't mean like we don't need to have all five of us or six of us be TKs, but something connected either to Andor or the Cal Kestis thing. Because, like I said, I know Dave Filoni and John Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy are listening to this. what if we put together a squad, a team, and made it out to one of these premieres? Because I
Yeah.
mean, look at what happened with Sal and his family and the Rogue Rebels. I mean, they became the Star Wars Rebel family. They were all in Rebels costumes and so on. So, should we search through this Andor trailer and come up with costumes from that, or should we go back through the Jedi Fallen Order game and make up some costumes for that, where all of us can kit up as a collective?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we don't even have to be like specific characters. We can just, I mean, at least the way I interpret it, we could just do like a group of like non-named original characters, just like your average Joe down the street on Tatooine, and have that be a cohesive group where it's like, hey, we're all just like vendors on the street, or like as much as you love to proclaim, we're musicians playing in the street.
The traveling minstrel band.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, we could do something like that too. Or I mean, it doesn't have to be so far as named characters,
Yeah.
but
And now with these shows, there are so many better images of the random citizen.
oh yeah, for
and
sure.
I know in I can't remember if it was Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett or both, where they showed the roasted Kowakian monkey lizard. What if we had one? Do you remember the old timey street performer where they had like the hand organ and they had the dancing monkey? So
Mhm.
maybe one of us has one of those hand organs and we have that Kowakian monkey lizard as the prop.
Yeah.
So that we could be street performers, but not necessarily musicians. It could be different kinds, and like all of us making sure that our costumes look like they're from the same street, because I don't think a Coruscant street vendor is going to necessarily look like a Navarro street vendor, or a Tatooine street vendor.
Right. Yeah, I think
Or
that's definitely something we should bring up.
what if we got fancy and the six of us dressed like mods? We don't necessarily need the scooters, because the scooters could be off camera in the shop,
Right.
and we could all just have various appendages or apparatuses attached to us, so we could be the mod squad and have
Yeah.
like dapper clothes on that look like they would fit into the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. Actually, I like that a lot too. I mean, heck, why not both?
Yeah, that's
What? It's
all
I
of it.
mean,
Yes.
yes, just check every box. Yeah, I definitely I think that's something we should broach the subject with everyone to see if that's something we couldn't throw together.
Yeah, because one of the great things about those kind of costumes, while it does take attention and it does take effort to put them together, I don't think it takes the same kind of attention where you have to get to the exacting detail to be approvable. These are the kind of fun costumes that we just wear, together, as one group, because I think Star Wars looks better when you have more of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kylo Ren is cool and people recognize him, but when you have Kylo Ren next to Rey or next to, um, you know, some TKs or First Order stormtroopers, then it's becomes super cool.
Oh
Now you
yeah.
stepped into Star Wars.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something we should do, at least in some capacity.
Yeah.
So, and the best part is we all do it already. We all dressed up as Star Wars costumes. We need to do it together.
Yes. Focused.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end it there. I gotta get ready for work in the morning. So, when should we expect a new episode of the Forces Behind Star Wars?
Well, we are going to be recording our next episode of The Forces Behind Star Wars next week. This episode will be a recap of the 6-episode season of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So the way we're talking about it is, so there's 5 of us in the group. Each of us will take one episode and we'll kind of lead the conversation, and then all 5 of us collectively will talk about the finale. So that's what I'm trying to think which day that is. I want to say we may be recording on Thursday of next week, if I'm not mistaken. And it'll probably be released to the world that weekend. And then
All
I
right.
was talking with Heather tonight, and my goal is right now on paper to have the Rambling Star Wars fan prepared for world premiere in September. Because
Wow.
I want to have a website, I want to have a YouTube channel, I want to have the podcast channel. Because what I'd like to do with the Rambling Star Wars fans, I've picked up a little bit from Zoe from Star Wars Geek Girl, and I want to have whether it's a book review or a short article, and I want to be able to display some of my Star Wars pictures. And I have come to enjoy the video aspect of the conversations that we have. So the way I'm envisioning it in my head, that occasionally I'll release an article, I'll release a podcast episode, and then a couple days after that podcast episode gets released, I'll release the video version of that podcast episode.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on podcasts, you'll be able to catch my antics. And as the title suggests, the Rambling Star Wars fan, there could be a 10-minute episode where I read one of the Star Wars Golden books, or it could be a 3-hour episode where I talk about all the different speeders that have been in Star Wars and why they were speeders at all, because of George Lucas's initial fascination with fast cars.
Right.
So that's what I have in store. And how about you? Well, so when do you think this episode of Beskar Bucket will be released to the world?
I'm hoping for Friday.
Okay.
Because the great thing about Restream, this software, for those who don't know, is you can immediately just export the audio.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's that. And then my live feed gets automatically uploaded to my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's really simple to export all this. It's very, very low maintenance.
Okay.
So hopefully this should be up by Friday. And then I spoke to Zoe. I'm hoping that we can get together sometime this week, if not this weekend, to record an episode of the Star Wars Geek Girl podcast.
Oh, cool! And you'll be able to share that on your feed as well.
I believe so. Okay. I don't know. I'm not 100% certain. But
well, I think theirs is just audio, so they might be willing to share the audio with you that you can then put out in your podcast stream.
Right. And I still haven't decided about this episode because I think I might break it up.
Okay.
Into two parts, but it at least part of this will be out this Friday. So
okay.
And then I'm still hounding Jess to get because yes, there is a part 2 coming for the first episode. He's rewatching the original trilogy, so I've been hounding him to do that. So I'm just waiting on him to refresh his memory, so to speak.
Awesome.
But yeah, and I've been in contact with a couple of creators from TikTok too. So for those who are my mutuals on TikTok, you know where to find me. But yeah, I've been talking to a couple people. I gotta get my ass in gear and just start, pumping content back out. So just been in a lull recently.
It happens. And I probably should tell you, you had asked when we're gonna record our next Forces of Star Wars. We're also gonna incorporate the Beskar Bucket bumper into our show. So the way that we have the episode planned is we're gonna have just some general Kenobi conversation where we just talk about Kenobi. Yeah, I let that one sit out there for a minute to see if you picked up on it. So we'll have some just basic Kenobi conversation about the actors that have played him, the history of Kenobi, some background of where the show came from, the ideas behind it. Pause for the bumper, and then go into the 6 episodes of the Kenobi show. So I'm so glad that you put together that bumper for us to use, because it'll help make that unifying fandom more of a reality. It's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to actually, do it. So high five for recording that and sending it to us.
Yeah, and hey, you are more than welcome to do the same. I actually I would implore you to, because I want to, I want to get that out there. Hopefully I can talk to Zoe and get one for her as well. And
Yeah.
if Mike and Colin start doing the Karita cast again, so
Yeah.
that way the unifying fandom network is unified, and it's one cohesive mesh.
Yes,
So
and it's actually doing stuff and not just talking about doing stuff. So
right, yeah, it's one thing for all of us to understand that, like, oh yeah, we're all under this kind of same umbrella, but we need to make sure everyone else knows that hey, there's other like-minded people. So if you like me and you like Ken, you like Mike and you like Anthony and Dexter and the whole crew. So
absolutely, and so thanks for an awesome conversation as usual, John. I really appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to next Wednesday now. So we can reset that timer. So,
Yes, sir.
but
We'll see if we can. I mean, right now we're getting close to that 3 hour mark. We know when we talk with Mike, it's usually closer to that 4 hour mark. So.
right, yeah, this is an early night for us.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
but well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate you stopping by, and glad we were able to chat for a bit. And thanks for everyone for hanging out and listening. And we'll see you on the next one.
See you later. Have a great one.
All right.